we need to have a way to handle things on our own, because there may be a point in time where nobody's coming to help. And it may be sooner than we think.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you, Matthew. We are so excited today to bring to you all Stephen File. Stephen is with Strategic Home Defense. I'm wearing the shirt. We actually had Stephen out at Galt's Landing. Brian and I brought him out, and we walked our 52-acre property, and he gave us an incredible report with layers and layers and layers of details on thoughtful ways to defend our property in the need of this potential defense, right? And we all know that we are potentially right at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse, right? Or many other names for it. By the way, I want to share that in Florida, the crime rate has gone exponential. In Minnesota, it's gone exponential. And when I mean exponential, I mean for the first 5 years I lived here, we had zero crime reports on our next door neighbor app. Now we're getting multiple per week. So, Stephen, I want to thank you for what you do and for being here and sharing with us how to defend ourselves.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Jim. I appreciate it. And hopefully we're getting back to Florida soon. We'll talk offline, though. But
good.
Excited to get back to that humid weather rather than that dry heat over here in Texas.
Really dry, right?
It's been very dry. Yeah. We need some rain. Okay. But yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for having us out to Florida. You know, it's kind of a unique situation we're in the state of the world and the state of this country, that we're having to plan for the worst. But it's something that needs to be done. And I think a lot of people are not doing it. And that's kind of what my wife Kelsey and I's idea was with Strategic Home Defense, was rather than just relying on some government agent to protect my family, that's my responsibility. And if I'm not prepared to do that in a justified way and an effective way, am I really taking care of my family? I can feed them. I can provide for them. I can teach them. I can educate them. I can teach them to be independent and have all these skills. But if you don't have a way to protect that, then kind of what's the point? So that's kind of why we got started. And we need to have a way to handle things on our own, because there may be a point in time where nobody's coming to help. And it may be sooner than we think.
Well, in some places, that point in time is already here. So I talked to a guy in Minnesota, and he said that the carjackings in Minneapolis have gone to the thousands. Now, I grew up in Minneapolis. I went to Minneapolis every weekend, partied like crazy, had a lot of fun. Never, ever, ever did I hear of a carjacking. Now they're in the thousands. And guess what? If you call the police about it, they simply say, no, we don't handle that kind of thing.
Yep, it's already happened. Sorry for your luck. You know, that's really, because the staffing is so bad. Because the people you're getting in law enforcement, the 90% of the good cops are not there anymore because they were ostracized, and you're just getting people that aren't fit to do that job, are not mentally tough enough to do the job, and are just overwhelmingly physically unprepared. I mean, you see just one aspect of that position, you know, being in the military and law enforcement, you see these people that are out of shape. They're failing to act, as we saw here in Texas. And it's like, you can't rely on other people to keep yourself safe. You know, there are positions you might be in your life where you need to run. There may be positions where it's time to fight, and there may be positions where we need to have another plan. But that's really what we do, is we help take out a little bit of the guessing work. If you've never been in that position, to know, okay, when I want to put myself, no matter what in life, right? I want to set myself up in a position to win. So why wouldn't I do that with the way I set up my land and how my privacy is set up? Whether that means, you know, we may not need 700 feet of fence, but that may mean planting trees and shrubbery strategically, so not everybody and their mother can see, you know, the assets we have. And that asset may just be food or animals and things like that are going to become more scarce in the coming years and months. So it's very interesting.
This is the most interesting time in the history of written history, anyway, when you look at all the things that are coming together at the same time. I mean, a lot of the cops I've heard don't even have the budget to put fuel in their vehicles. So like, oh, sorry, we can't get to you. We don't have any gasoline.
It's like, how's the defund the police working these days, right? Like, what? Whose bright idea was that?
Yeah, never. That's like one of those things where it's there's certain things that are broken, right? But you've never made people better trained by taking away, money. Now there are some other things where we just need to stop pumping money into, like, oh well, we need to do this. Well, there's some things where people need to be trained, right? They need to be constantly learning new tactics. That's like if you're like, hey, we're at war with Russia, let's stop training our military because they'll definitely get better at fighting off the Russians. That makes no sense, right? But some other things that are just so corrupt and look like the illegal revenue service, things like that, like just the pumping more money into that's not going to fix anything. But there's certain things that we kind of turned that on its head and said, okay, if the tax dollars aren't going to get funded into helping protect people, that U.S. citizens are paying billions and billions of dollars in taxes, and their government is failing them to keep them safe, whether it's from outside threats or inside threats, or the government using the CIA to funnel drugs into neighborhoods of the United States, whatever else they're wasting money, they're not spending it to better train law enforcement. Then we could better train the populace. I mean, that's how it used to be. I mean, living on the frontier in the United States, you could be dealing with other countries. You could be dealing with trappers from France, different countries and different tribes that maybe you did get along with, some you did. So you needed to be prepared, and that was just life. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but if you're not prepared, to make a decision and have a plan for your own family, I think you're going to be in for a rude awakening here in the coming times. Just the way things are going with food and materials, it is getting more and more and more. We didn't do. I've been keeping an eye on formula.
Yeah,
we really do formula. My wife breastfed our boys, but I look at the formula, and it's like there's like 10% of what you would normally see in the stores, right? And that's still, I mean, even certain things, and it's not like, but the junk is in full force, right? You see, there's 75,000 boxes of Cheez-Its in the grocery store, which have no, really any value to your nutrition at all. But there's, very few peppers. There's very few, heads of spinach. There's, broccoli is low, things like that. Meat is low, very low, especially beef.
And it's just starting. This is the tip of the iceberg on the lowness of things, right? It's going to go down infinitely more.
Yeah.
So, and I'm excited too for our listeners to get into the details about how they can really start thinking about their home, their living situation, whether it's an apartment or how many acres are you on, Matthew?
We have 98, and we're Stephen, you'd be happy. We're completely surrounded by bush. We have everybody funnels into the driveway. It's the only way to get into the property.
That's right.
And then I've got all my traps set up right at the entrance. For all you listeners, don't come here.
Yeah, there's claymores on both sides, strategically located.
Yeah. Stephen, before we go into too many of the details, can you just tell everybody kind of where your background is? Like, do you have military experience, law enforcement?
Yeah. So I'll go back a little farther about one of the reasons I started this business. I'll cut the story very short. But one of the things happened to me. I was maybe early years in high school. Grew up in central Pennsylvania in the capital, Harrisburg, and I had injured my knee, and I was at home. I was at home from school that day. I think I don't remember what sport I was playing at the time, maybe football or something. And a guy was trying to kick down my front door. I didn't hear it yet. I was downstairs in the basement working on homework. The guy was trying to bust in the door. And I remember calling my dad, because I called him before I called 911. I was like, hey, man, what do I do? He said, listen, this is where I have this secured. You grab this weapon, you barricade the door. He said, if the guy gets in the house, you waste him. I said, yes, sir. Okay. Because the guy was like screaming and cursing. He was looking for somebody else. I think he was very intoxicated. And I eventually called, local law enforcement. They came and were able to arrest the guy. He was looking for somebody else. The guy was just trashed. And, but never once in that time wasn't like a real elaborate plan. But I was old enough I've handled firearms before I'd shot. I was a teenager. But my dad, he didn't panic at all. He didn't freak out. He was like, listen, son, do this, set it up. If you need to, make a decision. And there was I'm sure he was scared, obviously, as everybody myself. But I was like, if there is something going on, I need to know. That's how you need to be able to make a decision. You need to take a deep breath because you may not be there and have a plan. And he had something available for me to use, if need be, to protect myself because I was at home alone. But that's why we include the family. This isn't just like, oh, mom and dad or, the adult in the house. Like, no, maybe 3-year-olds, they can be like, hey, there's a fallout area or like a safe room, you need to know that. But if you have teenagers and things like that, they need to be included because they're at the point now where they're making mature decisions and they want to be a responsible adult. They're part of the family and they need to be able to do that. So that was one of the personal experiences in my life where I was like, wow, if you teach your children to be fearful, you're just going to set yourself up because you may not be home when that situation. And we explain that to people. This may happen when you're not there. So that was kind of one of the inspiring things to make us want to empower people. We don't want to spread fear. We want to spread reality, but we want to prepare people and empower them. That way they can handle business if they have to. But that's just kind of one of the inspiring things of why we did this. But as far as, work experience and what I've done, I was in the National Guard for like 12 years, Army National Guard. I'm on my way out because I refused to get the COVID vaccine, the mandated COVID vaccine. So I'm on my last couple of months and we'll be getting my discharge here to probably October. So the start of the new fiscal year. But I was an infantry squad leader, did all sorts of stuff, been training all over the country, different marksmanship stuff, been to the Middle East once and made some of the best friends I've ever made. And it was a great experience. But the way things are going now, it was, time for me to leave and that's fine. But I don't regret it. I hate to see the way things are going now, in the military overall, but very, very impactful in my knowledge and preparedness of being able to plan, to plan these security reports for people and analyze things with kind of that operational mindset of, are you prepared for everything? Do you have food? Do you have water? Do you have backup? Do you have backup power? Every single thing. Does everybody know their role? That mindset, not necessarily specifically the tactics side, but that mindset of having every avenue covered really played a big part in how we prepare our security analysis for our clients. I also worked in law enforcement for over 7 years. Worked in criminal intelligence and in SWAT. So a lot of the tactical background came from that and worked in patrol. That was another big inspiration for this too, is seeing the lack of resources, right? So might have a county with 300,000 people in it, and there may only be 12 to 15, deputies working in that county. There's no way with the rate of things now, even in a very overall safe county, to respond to things, right? So 15 people have a crisis at once. That's everybody. That's the whole shift. So that was one of the things where I'm like, hey, it could be 20, 30 minutes, an hour. So someone's coming to help you or more, depending. You could be out in Nevada somewhere. It could be hours. So you need to have a plan to handle things. And we looked at that and I'm like, man, this is something that nobody else is doing. I research it because it was like, oh, something new. You're scared about it. I said, well, you know what? There's nothing to lose because no one is doing this. Worst case scenario, we're the first people to really do this and provide people specific and detailed training for their property, their home, their business, their land, to have a plan for a critical incident, a plan for medical emergencies, mass casualties, whatever they have to deal with. They're going to be better prepared than they were the day before. I'm like, I feel pretty damn good about that we can provide that for people. And there's a lot of people out there that could learn from that and benefit, and it could save people's lives in the future. So that's really the long story of why we did this. And my partner as well, Kelsey, my wife, she was a canine handler. And she's a sharp one. She's a Spitfire. and really helps too, because a lot of our like residential clients, a lot of first time ones are females. So she's a great connection there, and that she's also a badass. So she works out 5 days a week, even with twin boys, no excuses. She's all about it. And, but we have a nice team here, and just,
that's awesome.
Like I said, it's a unique thing that nobody's doing. So I think it's something we could really help a lot of people with.
Oh, for sure. Now, Brian's been preparing longer than I have, and both of us have been 12, 13 years plus. He's even longer. And, we know a lot of stuff, relatively speaking, and we still learned a lot throughout the process.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. To this day, one of the largest property we've done to this point. So it was great, great experience. But you guys made it easy for the provision side, because you guys got the food, you got the animal, that's one thing a lot of people struggle with. They don't even have, they may not even have a backup freezer with, maybe 100 or 200 pounds of beef, things like that. And that's what we go over too. Well, it's not just the physical security side of having a plan, having some training, is okay. That's great. But what do you have to sustain you when PEC power goes down? What do you have to sustain you when you can't go to the grocery store to pick up your overpriced, chicken or beef or whatever? Like, what do you have? And I'm like, oh, well, I got like a couple steaks in the freezer. Well, that's not going to help you survive for 6 months. You gotta have a plan and something that can continue to be replenished. So,
and I want to bring this up as an asset, especially if you have an alternative power source. If you only have the grid power, then your freezer is at risk.
Yeah.
But as an asset, getting some solar panels and a battery and having an off-grid freezer is a really good idea. And also, the steak itself is going up in value relative to fiat, which is going down rapidly, and it's going to get way more expensive. So now, that's why we have 7 cows now, and 2 of them are pregnant, right?
That's awesome.
And also arms. I mean, the cost of ammo is probably going to go nuts as the supply chains get more destroyed. Mm-hmm. So having these assets on hand is simply a good investment on every level.
Yeah. And it takes time, Jim. And the most important thing is gathering LMPs, like-minded people, right? So it's hard to take this on yourself. And anybody that said, well, I'm self-made, I did all this myself, blah, blah, blah. Well, really, you're full of shit. Okay. Because at some point in your life, somebody has mentored you, whether positively or negatively, has impacted your life, right? To make the decisions that you made, got you to this point, and go, hey, this is what I need to be prepared. This is what I need to do. Listen, I might need X amount of dollars and all this equipment. I need to be able to move it. I can't do this by myself, but I know, Brian, and I know Kelsey, and I know John. If I team up with these people, they're all independent people like me. They're all about being self-sufficient. They love freedom. They love their privacy. And we all have that in common. I'm not saying we need to agree on everything. Like other stuff, whatever. Like religion, I don't care. I have my own thing, and this person might have their thing, and that's great. But if we have that common thing where we can say, okay, we enjoy our freedom, we enjoy being able to raise our kids and teach them to be free thinking, and they be outside and they're not glued to a screen all day, awesome. Band up with those people and work together. Doesn't mean you need to live on the same property, but say, hey, John, at your house, let's do a freaking greenhouse. Okay, Tim, you have flat land with a lot of grass. You could do cows. Okay, great. And everybody pitches in to share, right? So finding those people that goes to your emergency planning, right? Because then everything goes to shit. You have those people you can call up, hey, man, or it may be, we don't have communications. You may be on a radio, or you may be driving to their house, and know that, hey, we have this guy for food. We got this guy for maybe stone, or whatever you need, whatever materials you need, that you have somebody that has their skill set. So that's one thing. If your only value is like being on TikTok these days, like you're going to be in for a rude awakening when stuff goes south. Like those hard skills, those trade specific skills and things like that are just really, really hard to find in people now that truly know what they're doing. So finding those like-minded people that have a valuable trait, and that trait may even be bringing people together. right? You can't have a bunch of type A's and then nobody knows how to communicate, right? That's usually the worst thing type A person has. They're doers, but they can't communicate worth shit, right? So having somebody that's a gatherer and brings people together, or I wouldn't even say like a spiritual leader, but somebody that can take a step back, right? Look at the overall picture and know how to strategically place people in their gift, with their role, whatever it may be. So that's really important. But having that foundation of people is so important.
Yeah. Having a great leader. And this is, as you've already brought up, it's going to be a strength in numbers and survival of the fittest type of moment. And it's part of the reason why we've moved out to where we are. We wanted to, have our own space that we could fortify ourselves at, and B, have a space that a select group know that if X happens, come here, so that we can defend ourselves and them, and work in collaboration to ensure that our children are safe, and on and on. And we have food and, the things that are going to be important if a system collapses, which all signs currently point to a collapse of some sort.
Yeah. I believe so. I see that, and I see the potential for fracturing here, as far as territory in the current country we live in. I think that there's going to be, I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime or not, but I think either mine or my children's, there will be a fracturing here. I think you're going to see different territories. I wouldn't be surprised. You're kind of going to see a Midwest, Southeast kind of thing, I think, is what most likely will happen. And then the West Coast will just, there's so many beautiful areas out there outside of the cities. It's just a shame that the metro area is there's a lot of good land out there too, honestly, especially in the Northwest. Very sustainable for life. So
water and
a lot of water
and life,
a lot of water
here and every other thing. And I personally think, with all my studies, I've been obsessed with this study now for about 15 years. And I think that fracturing is already happening at a rapid, accelerating rate, as you kind of alluded to. And I think that over the next 6 months, the lines are going to become more clear and more drawn. And we're in the Great Awakening right now. And as people wake up and other people don't, and a lot of times they're led by territories, like you just said, there's certain territories that are just behind on the wake up process. And even people in those territories, a lot of people from California are moving to Texas and Florida. A lot of people from New York are flooding in to Florida. Like, Florida's just freaking rocking, right? Yep. Because of these types of things, and in Texas as well.
Yeah, it's very, very true. And you're seeing it. And thankfully, there's a good bit of people that are coming. And I'm like, listen, man, you can, if you want to make this place stay what it is, which it's got its own problems, right? But you kind of got to get with the program, right? There's some things that I thought, Texas could have done better. A lot of things they could have done better the past couple of years. But overall, same thing with Florida. There's been some things that I've been happy to see Florida doing. Like I said, everywhere's got its issues, because there's going to be infiltrators everywhere that want to take advantage of people and take advantage of the dollar. But that's one of those things that really goes into where you locate yourself, right? That we really focus on is, okay, where I'm moving, is that setting myself up to win, right? Am I going to go to within 30 minutes of a metro area that's 5 million people? Me, probably not. I'm not going to do that. Maybe for the short term, maybe to start that exit strategy, right? To put myself in a position, okay, I can set up some other income streams so that I can be on the 10 or 20 or 100 acres that's 2 hours from a metro area, and then I have complete control over, for the most part, right? And I can have my own water source. I have my own food, things like that. So I'm hoping more and more people wake up to that, and just seeing people be empowered and more self-sustaining. We've been getting too soft, man. I think it's one of those things, and just the evolution of mankind. It's like you kind of go all these step forwards and need to be knocked a couple steps back to remember that we are not, we weren't designed to just be weak and sit on our butts all day.
We all need a good punch in the face.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Wake
We're
up.
made to move. Yeah.
Not even a slap. You need a punch.
Yeah, exactly.
Toughen up.
Wake up.
Bring back the men.
Exactly. That's what we're working on here is we got two little men coming up. So it's a lot of fun. And, we want them to see that and not see, you don't, I didn't want, have kids and they just grow up and say, well, we'll just play Xbox all day and, do this and just be focused on sports on school. I'm like, no, you're going to learn things. You're going to learn how to build. You're going to learn how to reload. You're going to learn how to use firearms. You're going to learn how to dig a ditch. You're going to learn how to dig a slit trench, whatever. You're going to learn how to use those hands and just stay active. Because that's the key to life is moving, staying busy, always learning, right? Learn something new every day, even doing something that I know a lot about. I learn something new every day. But
absolutely. All paths to lasting freedom have to include local self-reliance.
Yep.
Otherwise, the centralizers, the people who want to take control, the parasites of our world, the criminals are going to find a way to control and manipulate like they always do. And Thomas Jefferson wrote about this with his quote, the tree of liberty. The tree of liberty must be nourished from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants, for that is its natural manure. Right. So this isn't new. What's new about this is the technology, the NLP and the technology. And that's a big freaking deal. Mm-hmm. That puts us all in this state of hypnosis where we're not paying attention. We're not looking up like that show, Look Up, right? There it freaking comes. It's happening so clearly for those that are able to look up.
Yeah. It's Don't Look Up. That's the one you're talking about. The Netflix show, right? Don't Look Up. And then the realities of all throughout history, at least the history we're kind of shown, is that you've always had a small group of people trying to control the large group of people. And for some reason, we don't think that's happening now. Now, I'm not saying that you and I and us don't think it's happening, but lots of people don't have that belief. They think it's all peace. And you couldn't be further from the truth, right? History is something that if you look at it, you can see it repeats itself. We are in a position right now where you have a small group of people trying to control the masses. It's happening. They are controlling the masses, although we have a number of us who are awake to this fact and we're not letting it happen to us to a certain degree. But it's always happened in history. So what if we are completely ignorant and almost dumb if we don't think it's happening now, right?
It's pretty wild. And I had a family member of mine who's very, very, very intelligent. He's kind of called things a couple years before they happen. And at the beginning of the whole COVID thing, everybody was freaking out, right? Except for some people. And shortly after this happened, we had a big party for some reason. We did our kid's birthday party. And we must have had, I don't know, probably 75 people at our house. We were in Virginia, had a couple acres, had a big fire pit. I mean, we had the whole neighborhood, all our neighbors over, everybody, and just had a great time. Nobody can complain. I heard other areas of people calling, oh my God, somebody's having a barbecue. We need to, go shoot them. I don't know, for their safety. Right. So, we had this big thing and he told me, he goes, I'm telling you, he's like, give it about a year. He was like, in about a year, he said, they're going to try to force government employees, anybody in law enforcement, anybody in public service to get the vaccines. The military, they're going to force them to get a vaccine for this. They're going to magically come up with this vaccine. He told me this like February, March of 2020. He said, I'm telling you, this is going to happen. He said, they're going to kick people out of the military. They're going to do all this stuff. They're going to lose all the good people. They're going to go because the people that aren't dumb are going to go kiss my ass, which look, we're the position I'm in now. I said, kiss my ass. Okay, farewell. Have a good day. And, but there was other people that were even ahead of me. I was like, oh, you're probably right. Like I had no reason to doubt you. I thought it was dumb. I never understood how shutting everybody inside would keep people healthier. That's never made sense to me. But there's other people out there, which is what I'm getting at, and that finding them right can be the hard part. But I've been blessed to have some of them in my family that aren't blind.
What do you think is going to happen next, and how soon?
You know what? I think I can tell you my thoughts with all this stuff, with the IRS stuff going on. I really think they're going to do, because what's the biggest threat to the powers that be, right? Isn't the elites. It's the middle class, right? The middle class being small business owners, people that are family, like the men that they lead families, right? That are not the typical, the 23-year-old that's in, their master's program. Like the people that are independent, are small business owners, have their own property, have their own land. These are they're going to try to financially cripple these people. So they need the government to come in and save their ass, is what they're going to try to do. They're going to come after people like me and audit the shit out of us and say, oh, you have this and that. And oh, you have this expense. I mean, I think that's who they're going to try to cripple, because they're scared. January 6th scared a lot of people in government, and it should have. They should be scared. If you're a government official and you're not scared of screwing up, then there's something wrong, because you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to represent people. And there's people that they get reelected 20 times. And they've been in, look at our president now. He's been in politics for 40 some years, and he hasn't done jack shit for the American people, except make millions of dollars off of them and pay for his son's, crack escapades with prostitutes and, laundering money from other countries. So they're scared. They are scared. That's why they're going to try to cover it up in any way they can. We need to audit better so we can put more money back to make the economy stronger. No, you make the economy stronger by leaving small business owners alone and let them run their business. That's how you make it stronger, is keeping the money in the community. That's
or you go to war.
Yeah, exactly.
They're going to go to war.
It's getting to that point, and the people are going to get fed up. It can only go so far. I don't think it's going to be as many as you think, sadly, but I'm seeing more and more people that are getting sick. They got sick of the vaccine stuff. They got sick of it getting shoved down their throat, violating people's medical freedom for something that doesn't work, is making people more sick, is having negative effects on their life. Hopefully more and more people that's what you have on a platform like this, right? Is to teach people to be independent and share, positive stuff. But your motivation for doing those things is going to be turned on its head, and you're going to light a fire in the ass when you realize how real this stuff is, which like all the stuff you're doing at Food Force is super positive, teaching people because really you're regenerating the earth, right? By more growing things, and we're nurturing the soil to build back better, right? That's the real build back better, not wasting money on all this junk. But when you realize how real this is and how corrupt the people in power are, go back to the prohibition on alcohol. The U.S. government was poisoned over 100,000 people.
Yeah,
this is not this. You can look this up in the history in encyclopedias. They poisoned over 100,000 U.S. citizens. They poisoned, instead of arresting them, they poisoned their vats of beer and liquor and killed them. Over 100,000 people, mostly in West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, in that big bootlegging area, right? Down into Appalachia. So they've been doing this for a long time. This is nothing new.
Experiment, and there's just layers and layers of these things throughout history. People think that governmente, which means mind control, is for our benefit. It's absolutely not for our benefit. Anything that has force and violence as its foundation is wicked. I'll give you one example. So this, in the last 2.5 years, $10 trillion was pumped in, digitized, and then pumped into society, right? But where did it really go? How much of that $10 trillion did the people get? It was just a few percent. And where did the rest of it go? It went to corporations that are controlled by the same couple entities, really the same small group, BlackRock and Vanguard and these entities. All of it leads up to them. They make the decisions by owning the most shares and by having the control. Now, if 1% of that would have been spent, or let's just say 1 trillion, let's say 10% of that 10 trillion, which is $1 trillion, that could put $1 million food forest or permaculture or simply garden education sites in 1 million places around the world. With 210,000 cities in the world, that's over 100 new nurseries for the public in every city in the world. That would radically overnight, I mean, within just 5 or 6, 7 years, if that would have started 2 years ago, and you could see these things going up all over the place, within just another 7 to 10 years, the world would be radically changed.
It would be completely different. It would be unrecognizable.
Yeah.
In a good way.
And we wouldn't have to care about cow farts.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's one of the issues is that people just get so comfortable, and it's radical change. Radical change is uncomfortable. So you gotta. It comes to a point where you go, okay, how much am I going to put up with this? Or it's even people that maybe somebody that's struggling with weight, right? At some point in their life, they're going to go, okay, I am struggling to get up the damn stairs. I'm running out of breath to get out of my house. There needs to, there needs to be radical change. Not that it's anything crazy, but it's radical compared to the way you've been living, right? So radical for some people could just be get off your ass and go build a garden box. You go do something that's not what you've been doing, right? That's positive. That's going to teach you something that's going to hold you accountable. Say, okay, now, hey, I got to get a little earlier every day because I know where I'm at. It doesn't freaking rain, so I got to water the garden. I got to do this. I got to make sure I have these spaced out this much so they're not competing with each other. Whatever it may be. But that's what it takes. But it's like I said, you can't force people to change, right? But like the examples what you guys got going on, those are great examples for people to say, okay, these guys are doing it, right? They're living it and learning something, new every day to help educate other people so they can do this. What better feeling is that to know that I don't need anybody else to provide for my family, for my group, right? It takes time to build. Like I said, you have those like-minded people help you out. We pitch in on things, but maybe 5 years from now, you look back and go, I don't need anything. I don't need a grocery store if I don't want it. Maybe I want to get my little Bluebell ice cream or something for a little treat. Okay, cool. But make your own damn ice cream. You can learn how to do it. You can YouTube for 10 minutes and learn how to make ice cream and do it yourself with your own dairy. So it's one of those things where you have to value that. I value that. I can look back and go, hey, I got my own trails. Me and my kids can go hiking on. I got my own garden. I got my own chickens. I got this. I got my own well that I drilled, and I don't need the government to come in. I don't need a handout. I don't need a cheese block. I don't need anything, and be happy with that. And that's a very freeing feeling to sit down and go, yeah, it's a lot of hard work, but that is real freedom, right?
I want to reframe the thing that it's hard to make these changes. Not making them is death.
Yes, absolutely.
That's harder.
Absolutely.
Well, I always like the philosophy of it's hard to be rich. It's hard to be poor. Which hard do you want? Right?
Exactly.
It's hard to be fat and unhealthy. It's hard to be healthy and in shape. Which hard do you want? Right? Life isn't easy. It's simple though. And if you'll do simple things repeatedly, it will produce a predictable result. But what are those simple things, right? It's simple to go plant your ass in front of the television every night, eat shit food, consume shit information, poison your brain, right? It's simple to do. It's also simple to read a book and not turn the television on and choose an apple over a bag of chips or whatever, right? Life is not easy, but it's simple, and simple things repeated daily will produce your life for you. Just depends how is that going to look when people are taking a look at you? Are you going to be fat, unhealthy, out of shape? Or are you going to be in shape, disciplined, eating well, and can take care of yourself? And it ties back into the thought you had earlier, Stephen, about being able to take care of yourself and how you get a new level of confidence when you don't need somebody, right? You look at people, I'll use men who end up in a relationship with a woman they don't actually really want to be in a relationship with. However, they're in that relationship because they don't love themselves and care for themselves as they should. So they take whatever comes along and place themselves in that position. Meanwhile, inside, they never feel good about the relationship nor about themselves. So they end up in a shitty spot. Whereas if you totally change that and get into the strength position of, I have everything I need right here, adding that woman is not a need. It's a complement to my already great life. Now you attract that person that complements your life instead of the need into your life. And it's the same thing right here. If you can get yourself set up where you have your food, you have your water, you have your circle, you have your family protected, now you're standing on a strong foundation that can then put you in a position to care for others because you want to, not because you have to. And wanting to is always a much better position to be in than having to.
Yep. It's, I hear this all the time. And even for my own friends, I have guys telling me that they're not, they may have kids, they might be single, whatever. They go, oh, I wish I could do that. I said, dude, you can do it. I said, I did just little things like creating multiple streams of income, setting yourself up to win, right? But I had somebody my partner, who was like, hey, we should do this. Rather than getting a house, our first house is a married couple. Let's get a house that we can have a rental in. So we'll live on half of it. We'll rent out the other half. And at first I was like, screw that. I want my privacy. I don't want to deal with people's shit. She was like, no, just listen. We'll do it. I was like, okay. Because 99% of things, I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. I was like, you know what? You're smarter than me. I'll listen. We'll do this. But now we live in there for a little bit. Okay, great. Well, I'm like, wow, we saved up all this extra money so we could get a nicer house. And then we keep that house. And now we have 2 rental units and keep that. And then the other house we live in for a couple of years, start our family there, have kids, blah, 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 sell that, buy land and buy another house, right? And then put another apartment in that house. So rent out the studio. And then when we move out of this house, we have another full 2 rental units and we're on our land. And I'm like, if I wouldn't have said that one yes, that other decision may not have turned into that. And that's also, if you're someone who wants to be a leader, and you have to be able to take this time to take a step back and say, no, this person might know this topic better than me. Let's go with a yes and do that. But if I wouldn't have done that one yes, may not be in the position I'm in now. But I tell guys, I'm like, all you got to do is make yourself uncomfortable for a little bit. If you're uncomfortable, but it feels right, it's probably the right decision, right? If it's one of those things where you go, oh, well, what's this going to do for me in 5 years? Well, this is going to put passive income in my pocket for the rest of my freaking life. Why wouldn't I do that? It's minimal upkeep. I'm working for 1 to 2 hours a month on this, and it's going to pay me until I die, and then I'll give it to my wife. And when my wife dies, she'll give it to our kids. And when my kids die, if they keep the sumbitch still running, they can give it to their kids. So I'm like, why wouldn't I do this? But it's just having those things, because at any point, I didn't know what's going to happen. I could have been in law enforcement, and they could have said, who knows? I didn't know what the world's going to turn. They said, well, hey, we think you voted this way, your views are this way. Get out. You're not wanted here. You're in the military. You won't get the vaccine. Get out. Which half of that did happen. So that's why you have, like I said, always set yourself up in a position to win. And the more things you can create that bolster you up to, like you said, to want to help people. I know, because I've set myself, there's times where shit was tight and it was hard. But like you said, being poor is hard, being rich is hard. Or you can put in the work and set yourself in a position where you can, now I want to help people because I learned by making wrong decisions and some right decisions. I know I can help other men do this for their families. I'm like, that's a great position to be in. Not only does it feel good, but it's the right thing to do, right? Because you're building you're showing these guys that being part of the system, being part of the matrix is not the way. You got to break out. You can still manipulate things there, but you're not living in it, right? You got to pull yourself out and not be, oh, I have to be on this. I have to go to this 9-to-5 job. Get out of that. You could do it for a while, but if you're not doing anything outside of that 9-to-5, you'll never get out of it. If you get home and that means you spend a couple hours with your kids and then you work till 1 o'clock in the morning, then that's what you do, because you still have to be a dad, right? But you just don't sleep. I mean, just deal with it.
Exactly.
That's the key, right?
Yeah.
It's just, you got to make those sacrifices. But like you said, it's uncomfortable either way. So it goes back to your point. Would you rather be uncomfortable and successful and prepared, or uncomfortable?
I want to reframe something again. This idea of uncomfortable, when you actually know what you're achieving while you're achieving it, then I find it awesome. Like I love till midnight, 1 a.m, because I know what the results of my actions are. You could see them coming. They start out. It's a momentum thing. You start out, you're like, okay, got a little bit, and you keep going. And at first, you might not see it at first. And this is the magic. And Napoleon Hill wrote a book, Think and Grow Rich, and he talks a lot about this. You start by just taking that first step, and that next step, and the next step. Pretty soon, every step gets easier and more clear, and the momentum builds. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Like we're in the process of experiencing that right now at Food Forest Abundance. Epic things are happening. I mean, we're looking at creating a global international fund with a ethical banker that is for Freedom Farm Academies to be popping up all over the world. And one of the things that we will likely represent there, if you can scale, which I think is really important for what you do, is strategic home defense. Now, speaking of that, I would love to get into some details that people listening can start looking at their space, their land a little bit more clearly when it comes to how to defend. What would be maybe the top few things that you can share with just the general audience about how to defend?
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that we focus on before even getting to training or anything like that, right, is setting as many layers in place so that you don't even need that, right? Make this place so undesirable to want to try to breach or get inside or see what's inside that you don't even need that, right? Because that's the goal of security, right? It does what? It keeps an honest man honest. If someone really wants to try to get in, eventually they can figure it out, but they're going to be paying for it. And that's also what we're here for if that time comes as well. Hopefully you don't need that, but if you do, you don't. I always tell people it's kind of a funny thing. I tell them you don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So if you always have a plan, you're always staying on top of things, you're never going to be caught off guard, even whether you're there or not. So number one thing is location, location, location. This is one of the most important things. It's the same thing in the Army or the Marine Corps. When you go to get say you're setting up a patrol base for your platoon, where do you always pick? You pick the shittiest spot you can find to where nobody's going to want to go. It may not be shitty once you get there, but it looks shitty from the outside. So it's very dense terrain, very hard to get to, maybe not the most convenient place. But if you're going to spend the time investing to make it easy for you, but from the outside, it doesn't look like that way. Say you're building into a hillside or something like that. It's hard terrain to get up. It's rocky, maybe a little arid. Okay, there's one barrier. Privacy is another one. So adding all these layers are so important. So when you get that location, look at everything. Look at the population. Okay. Say within 50 miles. I like to do about an hour bubble. So in a rural area, 45, 50 miles, at least an hour drive, right? So what's the population like in that area? Is there 5,000 people every square mile, or is there only 100? So that's one thing to look at as well, because it doesn't matter where you're at. Statistically speaking, the more people, the more problems. That's just reality. Some areas may be worse than others, but that's going to be pretty even across the board. As far as location as well, okay, what is my likelihood of being able to hide what I have, right? Do I have natural land barriers? Do I have hills? Do I have draws? Is there mountains there? Or is it just flat? So if it's flat, that's okay. But then you kind of have to add some things. some trees and different things. That let stuff grow as much as you can have to get that privacy. Have put in bushes, shrubs, trees, whatever you can do. So have that privacy, because privacy is another thing. The less people see, the less people know, right? And then adding other barriers, add a gate. It may be something simple, because like I said, if someone really wants to get in, but you're taking away the convenience, if you have 90 acres and your house is set halfway back and they got to walk their ass the whole way there because of the gate, that you just added another layer, right? It's very common sense stuff, very simple, but you can implement these things over time. So, okay, adding lighting, adding cameras that notify me everywhere, any single thing you could do. Add a dog. Animals are a great deterrent, whether they're trained or not, because there are a lot of dogs that people overestimate dogs a lot, think that they'll protect them, because dogs behave much like their owners. If you are not somebody who's going to confront a threat, your dog will most likely not do that. They will a lot of times mirror your behavior if they're with you. So if you're confident in dealing with a threat, your dog will most likely be aggressive towards that threat. Now, if they're trained to deal with that or trained to bite and things like that, like we have 2 dogs that are just savages.
What kind of dogs?
So we have an Anatolian Shepherd who's about 130 pounds. And then we have a German Shepherd who is a former apprehension dog. So he's just waiting for another bite. So
I want to get a couple of the Belgian Malinois.
Oh, they're great. They're very high energy, but if you can keep up with them, they're awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I want them strictly as protection for the property.
Yeah, beautiful. Keep them active, keep them working. If you keep them engaged and exercise them every day, they'll go to war for you. They will.
You can even moose
breeds like that are awesome.
You can have moose meat.
Yeah.
So what about the suburban home and what about the New York apartment? Now, the New York apartment makes me cringe, quite frankly. But but there's people listening that might be in a New York apartment or a suburban home, 10 minutes outside of city center. In fact, that's where the majority of people live. What can we do? You already named a bunch of things: fencing, dogs, security cameras. What else can that person do or that family?
So, the big thing too, that isn't a physical security thing, but is don't advertise what you're doing, right? Don't post pictures of when you're at places, because there's people out there that will look. I mean, it's been shown there are people that look at that to see if people are home, if they're able to find out where you live, whether this is a psycho that's trying to kill you or like an ex-boyfriend, girlfriend type stalker thing, or just someone looking to make a good win off your house, stealing all your stuff. So don't be oversharing. Everybody likes to share pictures of friends and family. Got it. But be tactical about it, right? So you're going on vacation. Don't advertise, hey, we're in the Bahamas right now. Post some pictures when you get back. Just simple things like that. Don't advertise how many children you have and where they go to school in your car. Our vehicles have no stickers on it of anything. That there's no like, oh, this or this. I have this flag. There's nothing on my vehicle. There's no identifying things on my vehicles at all, just besides of the type of vehicle it is. You can say, oh, that's this brand. Okay, cool. There's nothing on there. Tint your windows, things like that. This is a simple one. A lot of people are going to be like, really, this is advice? Lock your cars and lock your house. Like most people, a lot of people, even in cities, don't do it. And there's so many times, I would say hundreds of times where I've seen that people were either burglarized, someone got home in their house at night, had to deal with the incident because they didn't lock the freaking door.
Mm-hmm.
It's so simple. And having some additional barriers there. And one of the groups we work with, Door Armor, they make awesome stuff that like actually, even if you don't have like a legit solid wood or solid metal door, it makes your door pretty much impossible to get through. If they're just trying to kick it in using a ram, trying to pry it open, you can't pry through it. It's like $90 for a door, for an exterior door. It's awesome stuff. And it still looks pretty good. You can get the mashing finish to match your your doorknobs or whatever you have on there. You got brushed bronze or whatever type of look. It'll all match. It look nice. But simple things like that, where you could say you have 2 exterior doors, adding this to your doors. That's a layer, right? But it adds time. Rather than criminal being able to get in 3 seconds by kicking in your door, It's now going to take him 3 or 4 minutes. Is he going to stay that 3 or 4 minutes? Because that's plenty of time for you to call for help, get somebody, if there's another adult in the house to help you, get them up, get whatever handgun, shotgun, rifle you need, and handle business. Or get the dog out, whatever you're going to do. So that's precious time. Any time you can add for making a decision and formulating a plan, that's a win for me. And if that's me investing $200 into my home to where now I have that time to make a decision, that's
you make such a good point there. Like, those seconds can save your life. Those seconds can be the difference between a successful home invasion and a failure.
Mm-hmm. And that is one of the things we do is, we walk people through these scenarios when we do our in-home response course. Is we make this specifically tailored for your property and for your home. Okay, you may go to the range, you may shoot all the time. Okay, that's great. Marksmanship is really, really important. But if you don't know how to make a tactful decision and kind of look back from the optic for a second or from the sight and make a decision, okay, where do I need to place people? What do I need to do before I handle this? Because you may have to do some things before you even handle it. Because the priority is dealing with the threat, right? And maybe something's already gone on in the house and you're waking up and now dealing with it. So now you got a whole nother thing on your hands. So like you said, adding that time to being able to prepare is so important. Having alarms are okay. They can scare people and sometimes people run off, but some people don't care. Dogs are much scarier alarms, even if they're not aggressive. So if you're good with having a dog that's really loud and really scary, I recommend it. It's very rare that houses will get broken into. They have dog. Criminals are usually more scared of dogs than people because they're going to try to go to somebody they're going to look at cars. They're going to say, okay, is this an older person that lives here? Is this just a couple like college girls that live here? Is this going to be an easy one? They're going to look at that stuff. Some of the more experienced ones that haven't got caught yet. So adding those layers are really important. Another good one, Jim, for more suburban areas is having those like-minded people as well. Establishing those neighbors, who they are, that you can trust to keep an eye on things when you're not around, and making sure that you're not advertising things to the wrong people. So that goes back to the privacy thing, of course, right? Like, don't be having your location on all your apps. Use a VPN. Just simple stuff that's so easy, so cheap, that you're setting yourself up in a better position. I've even, sometimes I'm just getting into practice because I don't know how things are going to end up. Like, use a Faraday bag when you travel. If you don't need to be on your phone, lock that thing in there. Ain't nobody tracking it. You can have it on with every stupid thing on, with Wi-Fi on, with Bluetooth on. In that bag there, they ain't tracking anything. Anybody. Even if some, entity had a search warrant for your phone and was trying to track it, they ain't going to find it. So just little investments like that. You can spend $15. Then no one, can see if you're home, or check, what's your location on Facebook? People can look at that as well.
The ones that you're talking about with social media and people putting every detail about their life there, that's such a overlooked giveaway that's so simple to not do, and people are lazy on it. And I can't believe the number of people that post, here I am on the airplane going away for 12 days, right? Like that kind of shit. And then posting every day that they're there. It's a clear opportunity for that person who wants to take your stuff. These guys aren't around. Goody.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a no-brainer. And then you can still share all your photos when you get back. Like, it's just
exactly. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's pretty wild. Yeah, how just people are just so oblivious, and we're my wife and I are both about it, and we've even had situations where this person we've had maybe a family member, somebody, they had stuff not on private, and I'm like, hey man, you need to make your stuff private. I don't want pictures of my kids on your background picture. You can have them, but your stuff better be locked down. You won't be posting it anymore. I was like, because those are my children, my responsibility. I don't want some freaking pervert out there. They have, maybe pictures in their bathing suits or something, there's a bunch of freaks out there in the world. You never know.
Our kids are not on social media at all, and we've told everybody to take them down.
That's good. That's good. There's too many predators out there. You know, I mean, and they're in our own government, and you know, these celebrities and politicians. I mean, they're in not just our country but other countries. I mean, they're all involved in it. It's like, God's been calling it out for years, but now it's. I mean, we'll never see all these people, hear about all these people that are involved, but just based on what we know, we can only imagine how deep that goes. You know, I'm sure into 3-letter agencies and other senators and things like that, and you know, people that have probably been presidents. I mean, it's just there's too many threats out there to not take this seriously. Where it's like, if these people in power are doing that, you think there's not people in your neighborhood or that go to your kid's school, there are parents of kids at your kid's school are not doing this stuff. They're out there. So you need to protect your information, and that's another really good thing that I got brought up is, if you protect your information, you protect your online traffic, what you're doing as much as possible, and not advertising out there. A lot of times that will translate to the physical side. The less stuff you put out there for somebody to grab a hold of, the less they know about you, the better, because they don't know what to expect. They don't know what you do. They don't know what time you're going to be home or anything like that. But I will say one kind of thing for the tail end for the residential side, Jim, is that if you live in a suburban area and you're not armed, you are wrong. If you live anywhere and you're not armed, you're wrong. This is still the United States. But, you know, if you're not armed, you're wrong. And especially if you have a family and you're not doing something, you don't have a plan. You're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage.
I've got a specific question around this. Now, I'm fairly well armed. And one of the, I have a Glock, and I'm storing a Glock in what I consider a pretty secure place. Could somebody find it? Could a kid find it? Yes, a kid who's digging around. Like I used to dig around when I was a kid, right? I was always looking for stuff and treasure hunting and stuff. Now, the Glock is not, there's not a round in the chamber, and it's on safety. So my thought process, and I'm wondering what you think about this, is that for me, I can grab that within 1 second. I could get around in the chamber within 1 second. I can have it ready to fire within 3 seconds. A kid, and my older kids, they are very aware and very conscious of arms. My younger one is not. My question is, and then kids who are visiting, of course, they're probably not. I assume that they're not. Right? It's a smart thing to assume. It's always loaded, and people don't know what they're doing. So my question is the logistics of turning that weapon into something deadly. I don't imagine a kid who doesn't know what they're doing would know how to make it into a fireable weapon. Does that make sense to you? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance of that, right? So we kind of, when our kids were not moving around and mobile as soon as they are, I could pretty much keep stuff wherever I wanted. So now that they're both very curious about firearms, not old enough to really get a full firearm safety program from dad, right? But they're conscious they know what a trigger is. They know what a safety is. They know what a magazine, they know what components are, and they know they're not supposed to mess with that. One thing that we moved to, just because mine are so curious, is we got it mounted, and we each got one. They're like, I'll have to pull up the brand. I can't remember off the name of my head, but they have 4 different options. Okay. And 2 of the options are pretty much instantaneous. You can do a code, you can do a fingerprint, you can do a key, like a key sequence, and you can also use a key. So there's 4 different ways. And I'll say, like, I use the fingerprint one. I just choose to do that because it's so fast. It is half of a second. That thing is open, and I keep it loaded in there. So it's already hot. It's already ready to go. And I know there's no delay at all. And it was like maybe $100. And I mounted it like underneath the nightstand. You can't see it. You can just put your hand down there. It's yours. So just little things like that are minimal investments and the thing is you can hide these some bitches around the house. Because that's one thing too. to go back to the suburban side, or more urban area, excuse me, is okay, you have a 2-story house. Great. And they're like, most people will see, okay, well, our safe's on the first floor in the basement. We keep our guns in there. I'm like, awesome. Well, what do you do when somebody gets in the house and all your shit's on the first floor? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. I was like, you could invest $100, have a handgun right by your nightstand, and put one downstairs that's locked. And you can access both of them the same way. And not just you need to be keyed to it. Your wife needs to be keyed to it. Maybe you have another trusted family. Maybe your elderly father's there. Maybe he needs like somebody that's responsible. Don't just have you that way. If you're not home, now nobody has a way to arm themselves. So have a plan for that. That's also what we help with. But setting yourself up to win, right? If I only have one weapon I can access in my home, there could be other points that are accessed. I kind of need to have a plan of how to, and different weapon systems as well. Because I don't know. This could be, well, maybe this might get taken down. It could be the IRS breaching with a bunch of dudes that come take all my tax files. I don't know. But so you need to be prepared and, have different things and not just, have something that could potentially defeat armor, things like that. I mean, people are getting crazier and just doing things, and they're over medicated and undereducated, and just the capability of the human mind and psyche when it's, turned into goo is just crazy. So it's hopefully you never have to deal with that. But if you don't have a plan to arm yourself quickly, like you said, you want to be safe. You don't want to just have 17 guns laying around when you have children out all the time. That's not practical, right? But it needs to be accessible, because
access is everything. I'm so excited. If you could send me us the link of those boxes, I'm going to get a couple of those boxes and put them in several strategic locations.
Absolutely. We'll do. Yeah, definitely a game changer. And, convenience is just out of this world to have that. And they're so quick to get into. Yeah.
I love it. Matthew, any thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, I wish we had the same access to guns here in Canada that you guys do in the United States. That's for sure. And I never thought I would be saying stuff like that. I used to travel throughout the U.S. very, very regularly, and a number of the states, obviously, where you can conceal and carry and do all that stuff. And I always thought to myself at that point, like, I don't understand why people need it per se. And that has been completely changed. I get it now and wish we had laws and abilities to do some of that stuff, because right now I think that's one of the major things protecting the United States population as a whole from this attempted takeover that's currently underway is the fact that there's more guns than people. And a lot of the patriots, they have them and they're ready to defend themselves, their families. At least on the surface, they have the weapons. So yeah, I'm a little jealous, as they say.
Yeah, one of the good things they moved to Texas is a constitutional carry. So which is what it always should have been, but is one of the good moves. Is now if you travel a lot and are traveling, this is one thing I debate about with myself is okay. Because now I'm reciprocal with all these other states, but now more and more states are moving to the constitutional carry. So I think I'm going to wait, because more and more are coming to the right side of firearms, laws is that, unless you've put yourself in a position to lose that right? If you unjustifiably killed people, if you're a murderer, okay, does that person really need to be armed, or they're a predator of children, things like that. But then you see other stuff. Oh, this guy had too much weed and that's a felony. I'm like, okay. I'm hoping there's going to be some fix on that too, because that's just ridiculous. But it's one of those things where I'll go back to my first thing. If you're not armed and you can be armed, if you have the ability to become armed, you need to be armed. You have to, and get trained. Even it could be find a friend, give us a call, anything, something to get some foundation if you have no experience. But because it's one thing to have it, it's another thing to know how to use it and take care of it and be proficient, right? But yeah, it's very important.
So then what types of service? You do a consulting, right? It's like a $250 hour consultant or so, or consult, like online like this, right?
Yeah, so we do, we'll give you kind of the breakdown of everything we do. So we do online consulting. So an average residential we can kind of get all of our information from you and relay some things in an hour. And then we'll do a full security workup for you and provide it that week. Okay. And then with all of our recommendations, basically training we do, emergency planning, everything, different layers we'd add to security for your home. And then give you that report back. Okay. And I'll be included in your consultation. You'll also be added, you'll get a copy of our ebook as well that I prepared. This last month, finished it up. So you'll get a copy of that and also get added to our Telegram group, which we're getting ready to kick off. And we're going to have a bunch of like weekly, sometimes daily tips, just recent things that I've been researching and Kelsey and other clients. So we can have that positive information sharing and things that have worked, things that didn't work, and product recommendations as well, and have that on there, and just to keep each other informed of what's going on in our separate areas as far as personal freedom and defense goes. On top of the virtual, kind of our bread and butter is doing the in-person consultations where we actually on site to a property or a home or whatever it may be, and then we also do a course that's called Tactical Response in the Home, which we actually provide situational based training specific to your residence, to your property, apartment, whatever it may be. Your townhome could be 100 acres, could be half an acre. We actually put you in scenarios and have to make decisions. We don't just throw you in them and say, okay, good luck. We're going to help coach you through. We're going to give you some advice. We're going to let you do a dry run where we just kind of see how you would react. And then we can tailor that plan to set you up in that position to win, right? Because we want you being able to successfully handle a threat. That's a huge win to us. Better win is you never have to deal with it. Great. And you maybe invested a little bit of money to be better trained. But if you ever have to deal with it and you win, it's going to make me sleep better at night. And that's why I do this, to empower people and let them be able to successfully provide and protect their home, their families, their livelihood. That's important. That's something to be proud about, is to have the ability to do that. So that's what our goal is. But yeah, we do. It can be stressful. We're going to put you under some stress. It's going to get loud a little bit. You may have to deal with somebody in the family who's hurt and have to deal with a threat and then treat an injury. So some casualty care and things like that will be included. So it's not just, okay, how do I get to the threat and deal with it? There might be some other things in there that you're going to have to deal with in a critical incident. That's not something the average person has probably dealt with in their life. So it's good to get those wheels turning and build the confidence in people too, that know, yeah, I can make a decision. I can handle this. It's going to be new. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be stressful. You're going to have adrenaline pumping. Yeah. But there is nothing more thrilling than dealing with something like that, coming out on top and winning. There's just nothing like it. Nothing like it in this world. It's a huge rush, but coming out on top with your life, your family being okay, is the most important thing. So
I love it. Well, thank you for what you do. We're happy customers, and all of your information, we'll put it in the link. And we also promote and advocate your work. So if anybody out there is interested, follow the link below, and we'll get you in touch with Steven and his amazing wife, and we'll help you defend your property even before the thing starts, right? That's the best way to defend it, is create the scenario like the art of war where nobody wants to mess with you in the first place.
Exactly. Set yourself up to win and everything, and make what you have so undesirable to try to get that nobody's going to want to mess with you.
That's the best way to win. Never fight.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me. Thank you so much for taking the time and got me out of the heat a little bit. We're hunting again today. So I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time, Steven. It was awesome to get your insight on strategic home defense, and we'll make sure to share far and wide so people can find you.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning into the show. You can check out more episodes on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and your favorite podcast apps. Check out our show notes for any websites linked to this episode, including where to connect with us on social media.
We appreciate you dropping by today. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you'll be updated with each episode.
And visit us at thejimgaleshow.com to check out all of our exclusive content. We appreciate you dropping by.